Hi, fourth grade Eagles. This is Ms. Wackus. So today we are going to be talking about a new part of your geometry. You guys have talked about sides, you've talked about angles, and those type of things that help us define shapes. But today we're going to be talking about lines. And there are three types of lines, and I kind of mentioned this in my first lesson on Monday. But those three lines are parallel lines, intersecting lines, and perpendicular lines. And I'm going to go and talk about these definitions that are on the bottom of the screen. But I want you guys to show me a parallel line with your arms right now. So a parallel line looks like this, or it can look like this. Notice my arms are never touching and they are never intersecting, which just means they're touching. They're going in the same way, either across or up and down, without ever touching. And you'll see that definition right here, where we're talking about parallel lines never intersect. Notice these lines are going across, not touching. If they continued on, they would still never touch. That's a parallel line. Think of like the yellow lines in the middle of the road that we see when we drive. Those never touch. The next one we're going to be talking about are intersecting lines. So we've got parallel lines, like the Superman pose, right? We've got intersecting lines. This is kind of like the Wakanda Forever, right? Like we're going across and we're intersecting. We're not making right angles. Notice my angles between here on the top and the bottom are acute, and my angles on each side are obtuse. They intersect and cross at the same point. So notice here, it'll tell you intersecting lines pass through the same point, but they don't have a specific angle. However, perpendicular lines like this, right? Think about like Captain America holding his shield, right? It makes right angles, and not only right angles, when they intersect and touch, it makes 4 right angles. So notice each angle, angle 1, 2, 3, and 4, are all right angles when they cross and intersect. So you'll notice here, this image shows that perpendicular lines are lines that intersect to form right angles. There's a right angle, there's a right angle, there's a right angle, and there's a right angle. Remember, right angles have those squares in the inside and they're always 90 degrees because they're just right. Now here's an interesting note. Perpendicular lines are intersecting lines, but intersecting lines are not always perpendicular because they have to have that right angle, okay? So I want us to think of some real world examples, and we actually have one up at the top of this page. See these railroad tracks, and I know we've seen them before because we have a lot of them running through Tampa. These tracks right here, and I'm going to annotate it again, I'll highlight it. These tracks right here, notice they are never touching, right? They keep going and going and they never touch, or else the train would lose its grip and fall over. Those are an example of parallel lines. Those tracks keep going and going without ever touching. But if we look at the ties right here, or the wooden planks that go across almost like a ladder, notice that when it touches the track, what kind of angle it makes? It makes a right angle, right? Which means it's not just an intersecting line, meaning they touch, right? But they're intersecting and touching at a 90-degree angle. That's very important because we know that in shapes, we can have angles that are acute or obtuse or right. So when we're deciding what kind of lines they have, parallel, perpendicular, intersecting, we need to pay attention to the angle they create. Now notice a parallel line is never going to touch. Oh, let me clear my notes. A parallel line has no angle, right? It's just straight across. An intersecting line can have any type of angle, and a perpendicular line only makes a right angle. But I want us to pay attention to a question that this asks. Because lines can technically intersect at multiple points as long as it's at the same place. So let's think about what we know about intersecting lines. If a line intersects and crosses at the same point, right? I want us to pay attention to this. It says, Terry said the line shows The lines shown intersect at 3 points. Would Terry be correct? Technically, this line crosses where? At 3 points. But if we go back to our definition, let's think about it. They have to pass through the same point. So that is 1 point, right? Now they would intersect and cross at those 3 points, but they have to be touching at the same place. I want us to talk about this part first, okay? Looking at this question, we see it says, what geometric term could you use to describe the top and bottom edges of a book? And if I have a book handy, that's great. If I don't, Ms. Wax is going to draw you a handy dandy book, right? If I'm looking at the top and the bottom edge, and I'm thinking a geometric term for those. They never touch, they go the same way. It wouldn't be perpendicular because that does not make a 90-degree angle. It wouldn't be intersecting because they never touch. It would be parallel lines because why? They go at the same direction and will never touch or intersect. Look at this next question. It says the blades of an open pair of scissors look like what pair of lines? If I look in our, or Ms. Backus draws you a handy dandy scissor, right? We got that part, and then it crosses here, and we've got that part, right? What kind of lines are those? Is that necessarily a 90? They touch, don't they? So we know they're not parallel. But do they make a 90-degree angle, or do they just cross? To me, this is not a 90-degree angle because I can't make a pretty little box in it. It'll fall apart. So this is a type of intersecting line, right? It's there, oops, but it doesn't make the 90-degree angle. So I want us to ignore number 4 and 5 on this part. But let's look at number 5. If we look at number 5 and we look for 2 pairs of parallel lines. Remember, a pair of parallel lines means it's 2 lines together. That's 1 pair. So if I have 2 pairs of parallel lines, I need 4 lines total, right? So I'm going to look and I'm going to find lines that never touch. So I notice that line YW and line XZ go in the same direction and never touch. Okay, so could that be a pair of parallel lines? I'm going to write, that's 1 pair, right? YW and XZ. But what if I look the other direction now? I go across this way. Those go in the same direction, but they never touch. So it would be also WX and, you know, I'm trying to type the best I can with this computer. Right here, YZ. So we have WY and XZ are parallel, and WX and YZ are parallel. Now, name 2 pairs of perpendicular lines. Interesting. Well, if I remember what a perpendicular line is, I can remember that they cross, but at exactly a 90-degree angle. So I'm going to look at my same chart. Well, I knew what WY was right there, but what if it crosses with WX? Right there, I see like the edge of a paper. It's a perfect 90-degree angle, right? or right here, it makes a perfect 90-degree angle. So could WX and WY be perpendicular lines? And that's all you're going to do. You're going to find those lines that cross or never cross based on the instructions you're given. So in this Nearpod lesson, you're going to go through and you're going to answer some questions to identify lines. And you're going to go through a quiz and you're going to have some moving parts where you're going to have to identify those lines that, remember, run in the same direction and never intersect, which are called parallel. Lines that cross at one point and have no specific angle intersecting, or lines that cross at a 90-degree angle, which are perpendicular. I will have some drawouts on here. Remember to use the pen or your finger to answer on the screen and hit the blue submit button. You'll have a quiz with a few questions. You pick one answer per question. And then you're also going to have a fun little video activity to do for me at the end of it, okay? So, excuse me. I hope this was helpful. Remember, you can always come back and watch this video in the Nearpod lesson as you complete it. And I look forward to having our Zoom chats at 10 o'clock in the morning. See y'all real soon.